This is my review of My Hero Academia. Okay, so the Forest Training Camp arc officially kicks off in this episode, and it's kind of starts off with a bang. So we find out that Class 1A and 1B are actually going to the Forest Training Camp together, which makes sense because they're both the hero courses. So 1A and 1B are going to be going on separate buses to the same location. And Aurora is very excited about the fact that they're going to be going on a Forest Training Camp and going to the training camp because she's been looking forward to it all week and all semester. And she and Deku have a bit of a back and forth about it a little bit, but then she immediately breaks it off once she remembers that she might have feelings for him, and then immediately starts hyping it up to get everybody excited through her embarrassment. Something that Deku definitely notices and is definitely impressed by. At which point they get on the bus and take an hour-long trip to the facilities. At which point they get off the train / bus, I guess, and meet Mandalay and Pixie Bob, two of the 4 members of the teams called the Wild Pussycats, a team of cat-themed superheroes that specializes in search and rescue and mountain climbing and for wilderness training and all that good stuff. So they're definitely the best heroes for the job when it comes to training the kids about how to survive and how to better their quirks and abilities. But then there comes a bit of a twist where they actually wind up throwing the kids from 1A off of the cliff, and then find out that there are indeed monsters lurking within the forest, or at least they think. Kota tries and fails to use his quirk and a voice on them to try and get them to stop the rampage, but after realizing that it didn't work, Deku takes a closer look at the monsters and realizes that they're actually made of dirt, and realizes that Pixie Bob's quirk is actually creating the monsters and that she's actually controlling them remotely from the cliffside. At which point Class 1A realizes that they would need to work together to take care of the monsters to get to the facilities, and succeed in doing so in an amazing display of everybody using their quirks together in teams to try and take down the threat. And they arrive much later than they intended, but they arrived in one piece, mostly. They're kind of just barely on their feet, and they're very hungry because they've been there since morning, but they're alive and they're fine. At which point we finally get introduced to Mandalay's, I guess for lack of a better word, nephew, I would say. I really don't know, because I really don't know all the family terminology and all that stuff, so let's say nephew. But we actually meet her nephew Kota in the scene. We've seen him prior, but this is our first time actually getting to meet him as a character. And Kota does something interesting. So Deku tries to branch out to Kota and tries to befriend him. And Kota responds to Deku's kindness with a punch to the gonads. So that's basically Kota's character. It's established throughout the episode that Kota doesn't really like heroes too much, and we find out why a little bit later. After which Class 1A eats and goes to bathe in the hot spring, which results in some minute of tomfoolery where he tries to climb the fence between the boy and girl side and is immediately shut down by Kota. But Kota, because he's in charge of guarding the cute girls, actually faints and falls off of the fence, and Deku is just barely able to save him, and then tells Mandalay what happened. At which point Deku finally decides to bring up the question, why does Kota hate heroes so much? And it's actually revealed that Kota has a bit of a dark backstory. So apparently both of his parents were heroes, just like his aunt before him, and they died in a mission. They died. So we never actually. So he kind of took it a little bit too hardly. They died. So what happened was they died an honorable death. They died protecting citizens for the sake of peace and were killed by an unnamed villain 2 years ago. And they died an honorable death trying to do what they do best, which is defend people from villains. But Kota didn't see it that way. He didn't see them as dying an honorable death. He saw them as kind of leaving him behind, and never really could understand what exactly happened that his parents were just suddenly taken from him. And eventually he came to the conclusion that because they were heroes, that all heroes trying to become heroes are just foolish and don't really deserve all the praise they get, which is kind of understandable-ish. I mean, he's a kid, so it makes sense that he would come to that logical extreme, because that's what kids do. They kind of hear something and they kind of see one thing and immediately go to the extreme with it. And because his parents were taken from him, because of hero work, he assumed that all heroes were just foolish and shouldn't waste their time with it. So it makes sense in his head, I guess, it makes sense that he wouldn't particularly like heroes, especially since his parents were heroes and taken from him. So it makes sense that he wouldn't like heroes all too much, because if his parents died doing hero work, then you would, by relation, you would hate all heroes just as much, because he just feels like that his parents left him without even saying goodbye, and his parents just left him behind, and he doesn't really know how to cope with his feelings. So yeah, that's mainly the reason why Kota hates heroes so much. But then it's revealed what the true purpose of the training camp actually is in the final scene. So Aizawa asks Bakugo to throw a baseball to gauge just how much they've changed over the past year. It hadn't changed all too much. So Bakugo throws a ball as hard as he can using his quirk, and it just barely goes over his previous record. So it didn't really change all that much. And then Aizawa reveals the true purpose of the training camp, which is to amplify their quirks so that the people who with the quirks can actually use them. And sure enough, that's what's going to be kicking up next episode. But this episode also has a subplot that's just barely running in the background. So it's revealed that Shigaraki actually knows where the training camp is being held this year, despite us being told several times that nobody really should outside the school, which also implies that there might be somebody who's leaking information to the League of Villains, and that becomes a major point later in the series, I believe. And I don't know if that arc is still ongoing in the manga. I don't read the manga, so be patient with me there. But yeah, it's revealed that Shigaraki actually sent Toga and Dabi and their small group of villains to mess things up at the training camp. So yeah, it's become evident that Shigaraki has access to information he shouldn't have access to, and now villains are hiding out in the training camp waiting to strike. So yeah, that's going to be interesting when it comes up, but it's definitely worth noting that somebody has definitely leaked information to the League of Villains, and it's clearly somebody important in the school, because it's established that it's entirely possible. It could be a student, but then again, it could be a student, it could be a teacher. We don't know. I'm leaning towards a teacher because it would make more sense that somebody from the higher ups would actually know what's going on and would actually be able to spread that information. So that's my theory. I don't know if that theory is actually true or not, because again, I don't read the manga, and again, I don't know if this little sub arc is still ongoing in the manga or anime. But I'd be interested to see if my prediction is indeed true. Slightly spoilery, I guess. If it is, let me know in the comments. If not, let me know in the comments. Either way, let me know in the comments if I'm right or wrong. But anyway, yeah, this episode establishes that the League of Villains knows about where the training camp is being held, while also establishing that the training camp itself is designed to help to help the students of 1A and 1B master their quirks and make them more potent, which we do see in a little bit of the shots in the next episode, is definitely going to happen. But anyway, yeah, if you guys do indeed like this episode of My Hero Academia, what did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And if you guys want to help support the show, then be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It helps me out. It helps you guys fund the content so that you can make the content better. So definitely check that out in the description below as well. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!